bless you, everyone. Welcome to Facebook Live. Again, we're here talking about health and well-being. I am so excited to celebrate the 10th episode of our program. And today we're going to be having our guest, Beresford Dawkins, joining us for the second time. But of course, as usual, I would like to start off with my scripture that I love to use for this program. And by now you should know that it's taken from 3 John chapter 1. And it says, and today I'm reading from the English Standard Version. And it says, "Beloved, I pray that all may go well with you and that you may be in good health as it goes well with your soul." Of course, by now we had hoped that the lockdown would have been ended and we could all go about our business as usual. But as you can hear from the announcements that are ongoing from the government, from our Prime Minister, it looks like we're going to be locked into this orbit for another 6 months or so. But all the more reason why we need to prepare and be prepared, why we need to know what we're doing and how to look after ourselves. So as I've said today, we've got Beresford Dawkins joining us, and we're actually going to be talking about resilience, what it is and how we build it. So let us welcome Beresford now. Welcome, Beresford, and thank you so much for coming back to Let's Talk About Health and Well-Being. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Minister Yvonne. Very good to see you, and thank you for having me back. Really glad to be here.
Of course, I want everyone to know a little bit about you. You're working with Birmingham City Council as a training officer, I believe. And now you're providing, is that from the past?
Yeah, that's from the past. I used to work for Birmingham City Council. I'm now working with Birmingham's Mental Health Trust.
Okay, so you're providing specialist mental health services for vulnerable adults of working age. You're informing and influencing the delivery of mental health services by introducing creative learning and development methods. I love that idea that you're positioned to shape the delivery of mental health services. How does that feel for you?
Yeah, again, I've been with Birmingham and Solihull now for 10 years as a senior manager there. We look after 60,000 patients across Birmingham and Solihull. And it feels really good. It's an opportunity. It's a privilege to be able to shape services and inform and influence services and how services are delivered for better outcomes for our patients. And of course, I try and do two things. Destigmatize mental health, because I think it's still one of the biggest challenges that we face in the city, and also try and improve mental health literacy. So there's a whole range of different innovative, creative projects that I'm involved with, which all helps to do those two things.
Wow. So last time you were here, we discussed mental health. We talked a little bit about the stigma that was attached to that. We talked about how the church could help and what the members in the church, the roles that they could play. So do you want to just give us a quick rundown of what you remember?
Yeah, let me try and bring a screen up so we can do that.
Okay.
Which might just help, just so that we can be specific. So just on reflection of the last time, we talked about the weight of COVID that we were all experiencing, as you just made mention to. And I think we're now in what? Is it 8 or 9 months now? It feels like COVID. We're still, faced with, people panicking. Again, we're still suffering and trying to deal with grief and bereavement. And of course, we saw the health inequalities that we've all experienced there as well. And we started to talk about how are we going to build our resilience? How are we going to look after ourselves during this process? And of course, we referenced Bob Marley's favorite song, which is "Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds." And of course, we also included a couple of scriptures, Romans 12:2, do not conform any longer to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So within Bob Marley's track and the scriptures, of course, it's really important to think about the mind, how we look after our mind in particular, in this case, our health and well-being. And there are things that we can do to ensure that we're experiencing good mental health. And of course, Proverbs 23:7 reminds us that as a man thinketh, then so is he. So that was some of the things that we talked about last time. And of course, we know that 1 in 4 of us will have experienced mental health problem sometimes in our lives. And again, like I've said before, the mental health stigma that we face in the community is probably one of the biggest challenges I face in the job that I do, because we're still not talking about it enough. And then even when we do talk about it, people are still reluctant because of the fear of mental health services and unwilling to get involved. So part of what you're doing such an excellent job with giving us opportunities to share is to raise awareness really about mental health, and then look at how the church and those who are not church can get involved.
Right, well, thank you for saying that. We saw an opening to be of service to our community and the members of our church by providing information that they could use in a way that they could accept. And I really hope that we are able to touch people and to bring some level of confidence to them by what we are doing. So today we're going to talk about resilience. Do you want to explain to us what is resilience?
Yeah, and again, it's potato, tomato, you know. You say resilience, I say resilience. So
that's what do you expect?
Well, no, I just referred to, and that's the point, isn't it? I mean, we all have different ways of saying things. So I say resilience and you say resilience, and that's fine. But we're talking about, when we start to talk about resilience, it's people who have really good resilience. It's about people who are able to adapt to stressful situations and also crisis. Yeah. So we're talking about people who are able to adapt to crisis and adapt to the daily issues that life throws up at us. So when we think about some of the things that we've just talked about, COVID is a crisis. It's a pandemic. It's something that we've never experienced before. And if you think about it, before COVID, there was Brexit. And before Brexit was the Me Too movement. So there's all things that are going on in the world, and we're expected to respond to them in the best possible way that we can. So all of these things are stressful. They're crises, as I've just said, but it's how we are able to adapt and respond. And my little slide says there, how do we roll with the punches? And resilience is something that can be developed, it can be learned, and also with a bit of practice and a bit of hard work, it's about knowing what to do in the crisis. When issues arise, when the difficulties in life arise, it's knowing what to do and how to respond. And it's about being in touch with your feelings, understanding why things are happening, and to be more in touch with your own inner self. So when you're starting to feel anxiety, when you're starting to feel stress, which we all do, it's knowing how to respond to that appropriately. It's how to regulate and cope with the difficult emotions, which are often anger, sometimes fear, sometimes stress, all of those things. It's about understanding what you're feeling and then being able to respond to it.
Right. Okay. So once you recognize what you're feeling, do you then pursue more knowledge about why you're feeling the way you're feeling?
There is that. Of course, we can get more knowledge, but sometimes your innate instincts will also tell you what to do and how to respond. So it's understanding what you're feeling at that particular time, but then being able to respond to those feelings. So it's about being in control. It's about having some perseverance. And of course, because if we're people of faith, there's also a spirituality. So it's about being able to respond to how you're feeling, being in control of those feelings, having some perseverance, and also trusting your instinct. So when we are going through, there's always an A plan, don't we? We always have an A plan.
Yes.
Always have an A plan. We always think, yeah, this is how it should work out. But what happens when it doesn't work out that way? And the simple explanation here that I've used is when the A plan doesn't work, we've got another 25 letters in the alphabet that we can always respond to. So if the A plan doesn't work, the alphabet has another 25 letters that we can stay calm, stay in control, trust your instincts, trust your feelings, and then start to respond. Yeah. So if your plan doesn't work, stay in control, and let's look at what it means to be in control. So being in control is actually in control of your own circumstances. Sometimes we try and deal with stuff that is outside of our own control. So actually, when we think about COVID in this instance, everybody's still calling it the invisible virus. Nobody can tell you what it is. Is it flu? Isn't it flu? And all we can do, and actually we're trying to manage stuff that is not in our control. So again, be in control of your own circumstances and your immediacy environment. Have a realistic view of the world and become solution focused.
So when you say have a realistic view of the world, what does that look like?
So understand that actually, you know, life happens, and you are part of the process. So when things are happening around you, whether they be in the immediacy of your own home, some of the crises that we talked about, the Brexit, the politics, some of the social conditions, some of those things are out of our control. So whether it be getting up in the morning, going to work, or not going to work, as the case may be, you might have just lost your job. That's what being in control of your own circumstances, that's what it looks like. Having a realistic view of the world that you live in, or the world that you're in control of.
So does that involve your expectations, maybe?
Of course, because you're dreaming, you have purpose. I often talk about purpose and people being driven. Well, what happens when it doesn't go to plan? You shouldn't just roll over and die. It's about saying, actually, you know what? Maybe it didn't work in this way. Maybe I should try a different angle. Maybe I should try something else. We'll always have a purpose, a drive, being in control of your own circumstances. If it's about looking after your children while you're getting up in the morning, making sure they can go to school or not go to school, have a plan. Understand what it is to manage your own circumstances. Being a father, a mother, whatever your role is in life, understand what that is fully. Going back to what you were saying earlier, getting information about your role, your circumstances, reading, connecting with other people. And again, I'll come on to that shortly. But it's those three things if you're going to be in control. Have an understanding of who you are and your own life circumstances. Have a realistic view of the world, and then become solution focused.
So this section here is entitled Control.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, how much do we depend on other people, or how much control do we give to other people if we're going to build true resilience and adaptability in ourselves?
Okay, we're going to come to that. So let's go to the next slide. So alongside control is perseverance. So again, it's facing the obstacles that you are faced with in life, whatever they are, however tough, however difficult, it's facing them head on. Don't feel helpless, right? And again, if you look at the images that I've got there, these are people who have just jumped out of an aeroplane. So you can't get into an aeroplane and decide that you're going to jump out, and you haven't thought about the process, you haven't begun to prepare the kit that you have. And more importantly, if you look about how many people are in that scene there, there's quite a few people. So there's some trust. So going back to what you're saying about control, if you're going to be in control, there must be some trust elements. It's about connecting with other people and facing the challenges head on. So it again, so alongside control, there's perseverance. Yeah. So again, facing the obstacles head on, don't feel helpless, trust the process, don't give up, and that's where you start to shape and build your resilience. And the final one, yeah, does that help? So the final one is spirituality. And I'm not just talking about faith in the true sense as you and I would know it. We are all spiritual beings. It's being in connection with your inner self in that sense. So yes, it's right to have a faith and believe in something that is greater than you, and most of us do. But there's also, we are naturally spiritual beings, and being concerned with that human spirit, the soul, opposed to material things. Sometimes we can be so materially driven, we can be so materially led, but actually it's being concerned with those things, you know, prioritizing. What are your priorities in life? And they should be of a spiritual nature. Okay?
Wow.
Yeah. And then, so what does building your resilience look like? Be full of optimism, always full of optimism. You see the positives, believe in your strengths, and appreciate the social support. Your question to me earlier was actually, should we be seeking out other people? Absolutely, we should be seeking out other people. And again, something that COVID, I think, has taught us really well. In this time of crisis, I've seen right across the city, there's been some random acts of kindness. People are just behaving in a way that everybody said that actually living in Birmingham, it can be quite hostile, it can be quite cold. But actually, when you start to think about some of the things that we've experienced over these last 8 months or so, most neighborhoods, you can see where there is random acts of kindness happening. People are starting to appreciate their social networks, the support more so than ever. And even within our church services, we're starting to question actually, those big congregations, were they really connecting us in the way that we hoped? And we're starting to see smaller groups form, almost going back to what we would call back in the day, the old prayer meetings, the old family networks. You're starting to see the value of those. So to build your resilience is about seeing the positives, believing your God-given strengths, and then start to appreciate some of that social support.
Wow, I do think that's a great point that you have made, you know, because I think previously we've had like great pride in the size of our churches and stuff, but size doesn't actually mean that we're building relationships, does it?
No, we're just busy. We're busy building congregations, because in those big congregations, for some people, it's quite easy to hide in those spaces. And even if they're not wanting to hide, they want to belong. And having a sense of belonging is really important. So the congregation space does have a place to play. But if we're talking about building your resilience and being able to respond to daily situations, that's when the family and those smaller networks become really important. And on top of that, as you were saying earlier, you know, reading, connecting spiritually, really feeding your mind with positive things. That's how you're starting to build your resilience.
Wow. So if we really want to build people, we've got to get up close and personal. So what do you think, and I know this may be a little bit of a sidetrack, what do you think that portends then for the church of the future? Because we're all talking about getting back to normal. I happen to believe that we're never going to go back to that kind of normal. But what do you think the church in the future is going to look like?
Well, that's a really interesting question, Yvonne. And I think there are those who are far more eloquent than me in senior positions are having those kind of discussions right now, because like you, I don't actually believe we're going to go back to normal. I think, you know, and there'd be some people who are saying, actually, I don't want to go back to normal. You know what?
Right.
Because of this time, I've started to recognize, one, who I belong, and because of the noise, if I can use that term, is now gone, I can start to see more clearly where I fit in this world, who I am in this world. My relationship with the Creator is now on a pathway into what it should be, whereas maybe in that congregation it wasn't before. You know, people became caught up in rituals and symbols, but now we're talking about a personal relationship. We're talking about, how do I quantify my relationship with the Creator? You will hear many people start to articulate that in a far different way than they used to before. And now they're finding their space within their community, within their homes, their roles within their workplace. Like I said to you before, people are finding random acts of kindness, or demonstrating rather random acts of kindness across the country. So is there a place for congregational worship? Absolutely. Is there a place for what we're seeing now as well? Yes. So I think they should complement each other somehow.
Yes.
You know, that's what I would say initially. But certainly for a lot of people, more so than the larger congregations, whilst it's good for brethren to come together and worship, but there's something about the intimacy of what we're experiencing now. And I think that has a real role to play.
Yeah, I think that we have to come together as a congregation out of our individual live relationship with God. Because I used to hear people say things like, oh, I'm performing for an audience of one. Well, at last they've gotten a real opportunity to do that, because now there's nobody there for them to deflect off or to point at. It's me and you, God. And I think that is going to be a tremendous cathartic thing for the church. When we do come back together, if people have built a vital personal relationship with God because of what they've gone through during this time, it's going to make the church a more valuable place to be in.
Absolutely. And I think the church should be like a filling station, I believe, where you come, you top up, you get your oil, you get your petrol, and then you go out. And I think with that going out, whether that be into the workplace or whether that be in your schools, your colleges, your universities, wherever that space is, you start to occupy that space in a very different way. And again, I think throughout COVID, we're seeing people occupying their spaces in a more influential way and a more impactful way through the newfound relationship that they have during this period. And I think that should be encouraged, you know.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
So as we move on, I think to probably my last couple of slides. So we've just talked about the importance of building connections. And building connections is not only about one-to-one individual kind of stuff. It's about, like I say, how do you feed your mind? So it's about the reading, not only the scriptures, but reading current material that is out, you know, informing yourself, getting knowledge, managing those thoughts that are going through your head right now. And again, the weight of COVID is still on us. And there are all kinds of thinking, conspiracy theories about why we're going through what we're going through. But if you are going to build your resilience, think about those thoughts. How are you managing those thoughts? And whilst you're managing those thoughts, are you taking care of yourself? Because it's quite easy to slip into all kinds of different moods. And I'm hearing, you know, for some of our young men being stuck and locked down, all of a sudden they're losing their self-esteem, not simply not being able to get a haircut can put you in a situation where you're thinking about your presentation, and because you can't get your haircut, you don't want to go to the house, and sooner or later that kind of feeling comes over you, and you're out of touch, you're out of sync with those real feelings. So it's how you manage those thoughts that are happening to you. What are you going to do when those thoughts come up?
So when you say managing your thoughts, so I'm starting to feel low because I can't get a haircut, and I start to feel low in mood. I start to disconnect from people, and you're telling me to manage my moods. What do I literally need to do? What are the practical steps of managing my mood?
Right. So the first thing is to acknowledge what's happening. So you can't get a haircut. What are you going to do about that? How important is it for you to have a haircut at that moment in time? The fact is that you're in lockdown, you're probably not going to go out. So it's about the immediacy of the people who are around you, to use that analogy. So you talk to those people. Look, I can't get a haircut, man. It's really frustrating. And before you know it, you've opened up this conversation where your wife or your husband or your children said to you, well, actually, you know what, Beres, it doesn't matter. You don't need to have a haircut today, or you don't need to have a haircut for the next month. You're going to be stuck in the house. And once you start to manage the realness of the situation, then you start to see the positives. You start to appreciate the conversation, the strength, the immediate people around you. And of course, that's how you start to manage those thoughts, which are generally speaking, negative thoughts. So it's about having the wherewithal to address and respond to the situation, those inner feelings, sharing that with your immediate surroundings. And that's how you manage those thoughts. And then you can start to take care of whatever that response needs to be.
So there's actually using your eyes, you know, looking around, seeing that other people are in similar situations, and actually just like reducing it from a catastrophic level to realizing, hang on, everybody's in the same boat. You know, nobody's going to look down on me as any less because their hair looked just as bad as mine.
That's right. And generally speaking, you're never on your own in these situations. Everybody else is probably experiencing the same. And it's having that level of confidence to share what you're feeling. And then once everybody else says, you know what, actually, I can't get my hair permed today either. And before you know it, mom's telling you that she can't perm her hair. You're saying you can't have it. You're starting to laugh and joke about the way you look. And before you knew it, you're managing that situation yourself.
That's really, really interesting, because it doesn't just apply to a haircut or even just to COVID. I tend to see that people are going through whatever they're going through, regardless of what it is. It could be a bereavement, you know, something as common as that. But we always think that we are the only ones who are going through and feeling the way that we feel. So actually being able to, as you've said, talk to other people, you then begin to realize that, hang on, other people have experienced this as well. Hang on, I'm not on my own. Hang on, this is actually a normal part of life.
Absolutely. And what is life about? Life is about to the situation, rolling with the punches. Life is going to throw many different things at you, regardless of how safe and secure you might feel. But it's understanding that this is what life is. This is how life works. It will throw several different things at you, but it's important to adapt, be able to adapt with all the things that I've mentioned before. See the positive, trust the strengths. You're not on your own. Call on other people, expand on your social support. And if you can't do the social support thing, start to read. Getting, you know, there's books. There are more people reading throughout the COVID period than ever before. And so the education, the knowledge, finding out that knowledge, learning about various different things, learning about how the world works. Look after yourself in the process. And of course, we talked about being spiritually connected. So those are the things that I believe will help to build resilience. Your life experience, as it is, as challenging as it might be, actually there are several people, and the immediacy of your communities, your families are also experiencing the same thing. So the more you have that level of communication, the more you start to open up those conversations. As silly or as sad as it might sound, find that confidence to share what you're feeling. And once you've shared what you're feeling, you'll start to feel that problem becomes a small problem. And actually you start to self-actualize, and you start to manage the whole situation yourself and your immediate people.
And actually talking about things, I think there's a term that they use in psychiatry, ventilation.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You probably sound as if you know more about that than me, but certainly venting or sharing, or again, just having those good networks where you can talk about things. Again, a lot of people suffer in silence. There's a shame to mental health. There's a stigma that is still out there in our community, especially in the BAME community. We have this pride about us that if we're feeling particularly weak, or we see as a failure, and we're not prepared to share. We're rolling with the punches in silence. Actually, you're not meant to roll with the punches by yourself. It's about being able to share. You look at these two boxers here, you see the two of them in the ring by themselves, but when they go back to the corner, they've got several people in there who are offering them support. There's the cut man, there's the health man, there's the doctor. Yes, you might have to go into the ring yourself and face various different things, the punches, the blows by yourself, but know that you're not on your own. Always know that there are other people there to support and help you.
Oh, I love that. I love that analogy. Wow. You're creating pictures in my mind, because their trainer is also over there in the corner, right? And
absolutely.
And people are there cheering them on.
Cheering them on, and their families would be there, their fans are there, and there's probably a crowd of, if you were Muhammad Ali, easily thousands of people. And that's the point. So you're never on your own. You might be the front person, and that comes with accountability, and it's about responsibility. It's all of that, but just know that you are never, ever on your own. And the other thing I want to say, there's some people that need practical experience and practical help. I want to give out some numbers if I might.
Yes, please do.
So Birmingham Healthy Minds, if you're an adult over 18 and you're listening to this conversation and you feel, you know what, as much as they've said, I still haven't got anyone that I can talk to, I want you to take note of this number where you can self-refer. So this is real practical help now I'm talking about, where you can self-refer. It's Birmingham Healthy Minds, and the telephone number is 0121 301 2525. It's one of our partners. Birmingham Healthy Minds, 0121 301 2525. And it's a matter of picking up the telephone in the privacy of your mobile, in the privacy of your home, and making that telephone call. If you feel that after listening to this, you need some practical help, pick up that telephone and you can share in confidence with the trained professional who's at the end of that phone. Now, young people are also, in my opinion, getting a raw deal for how they've been treated, certainly throughout this COVID period. You hear people saying that young people are the cause of COVID, young people are not behaving in an appropriate way. Actually, I see it very different. I see young people taking accountability, taking some responsibility. If you look at how they've carried themselves throughout whole health inequalities and the inequalities that we're facing in terms of some of the racism, and how young people of all backgrounds, all ethnicities have gone out and have really started to champion inequality across the country. I think it's a credit to them. But we also know that young people are some of the most vulnerable people that certainly I'm working with. And there's two organizations that I want to list. One of them is called Papyrus. Papyrus, Papyrus. And that telephone number again, it's a self-referral line, is 0800 068 4141. 0800 068 4141. That's Papyrus. And again, if you feel that you're having dark thoughts, suicidal thoughts, you think that you want to end it all, but you're recognizing that, as I was saying earlier, and this is the importance of recognizing how you're feeling. The analogy we used was about not having a haircut. In the same way that can turn out into be a real challenging situation. There are some young people, or just people in general, who are having some dark thoughts, low moods. Pick up the telephone number and call Papyrus. It's particularly for young people, 0800 068 4141. And the final number I'd like to leave with you is by an organization called Pause, which is a Birmingham-based, in fact, all three organizations are Birmingham-based, called Pause. It's another self-referral. They're based in Big Beth. You won't be able to get there now because of the lockdown situation. But again, they have a helpline, 020 4841. Sorry, let me repeat that again. 020 7841 4470. That's 020 7841 4470. And that's Pause. So, as I was saying about taking control, recognizing your situation that you feel that you're in, you're not on your own. There's some practical, personal help that you can get right there and then.
Oh, excellent. Can I just say that if you have joined us today, please let us have your comments or your questions, and we will do our very best to answer them and to help you. And I will repeat those phone numbers near the end of the program. Okay, Beresford, can I just ask you a question then? This lockdown seems to have gone on forever and ever. And I remember we spoke quite near the end of the beginning, or the beginning of the end, I don't know which way around.
Yeah.
And at that time, we talked about stigmatization of mental health issues and stuff like that. So I'm wondering, based at the viewpoint that you will have where you are professionally, is there more of an awareness of mental health issues that has happened during this time of COVID? Has it become easier to get help if you're someone who's suffering? And of course, it could be any one of us. None of us are exempt. Is it any easier for people to get and to access help?
I believe the help is always there. And it's about everything that we just talked about today. It's about, first of all, acknowledging that you need help. And once you acknowledge that you need help, don't be ashamed of that. You need to share it with someone, either your immediate family. What I haven't talked about is the importance of the relationship with your GP. Now, if you are experiencing low moods, which, guess what, throughout the COVID period, I'm pretty sure everyone has experienced some kind of low mood. And people are dealing with it and managing it the best way they can. Some people are not managing it at all. But the point is to start to articulate how that feels. Speak to your GP if you can. If you can't speak to your GP or you don't feel confident in your GP, I'm sure there is a friend or a colleague that you trust and you can have that conversation. And still, if you can't find a friend, there's 3 numbers that I've just given you there, that there'll be a friendly person at the end of that telephone call who can help you through whatever challenges that you're facing. So to your question about the access, people don't have or feel they don't have access to services. Again, I think it's a horrible myth. People think, oh my God, the immediacy of it, or where am I going to get help from? I'm suggesting to you that the help is always there, whether it be professional, whether it be local, whether it be grassroots organization, there is always someone to help you. But it's finding where to go at that particular time of need. So part of my job through these kind of platforms is to begin to share these opportunities, talk about services. Again, our service, we look after 60,000 people who have a whole range of issues around their health and well-being, and all of them will get managed, in a very person-centered way. So it's about each individual having their own experiences of health and well-being, and it's how we refer, how we engage with the professionals to pass those services on.
Excellent. So an individual doesn't need to be afraid that they're not going to get the help that they need.
No, they should never. And there are some people who are fearful of services because, let's be honest, we know that bad things have happened within services. We know that. And some people shy away from that. And because of what they've heard, what they may have even experienced, they shy away from services. But the important thing is that, like everything in life, sometimes things go wrong, because they do go wrong. But it's how we manage those circumstances as we move forward. And I'm saying, if you're unsure, I'm at the end of the phone as the community engagement person. I've been in the community for years, working in both the City Council and also the NHS Mental Health Trust now. And if you're unsure, only this week, someone who was admitted to services, who was fearful for their loved ones, knew me, they picked up the phone and said, look, I'm terrified. My loved one has just been admitted to hospital. What do you think? And because we were able to have that conversation, I was able to reduce some of the anxiety, and they felt better about how they approach that. So sometimes it's about connecting, understanding where there are community members, community experts who are strategically placed. And again, putting myself out there, it's good to connect with the churches. The churches like yourself need to do more. I'm from that church background myself, and as much as the church is doing, we can do more. You know, we have the biggest communities that, you know, across the country. The Pentecostal church is huge across the country and growing, outstripping our contemporaries. However, we can do more in terms of social responsibility, economics, and the list goes on.
Oh my goodness, that is totally amazing. I'm so intrigued into hearing what you are saying. I almost forgot that I was meant to speak as well. Okay, Beresford, we've got a question, and it says, how do you build resilience when you're starting from zero? So it looks like somebody that's hit rock bottom maybe feels they don't have a lot of resources or even support. How do they begin to scrape together the little bit of energy that they have to start building something that's going to support them going forward?
Thank you for that question. It's a great question. I think whoever's asking the question, there sounds like there's been an acknowledgement that they are where they are. I don't know if it's rock bottom. I don't know if they feel as if they haven't got very much, but that's the point. They've acknowledged that this is where I am. I don't feel as if, and the fact that they're asking the question, whoever is asking the question, that's the start. That's the start. It's acknowledging where you are. We use the analogy of the haircut situation. If you feel that you're at rock bottom, again, one of my slides talked about, it's how you prioritize. The difference between materially driven things and your actual needs. So sometimes we can get caught up in, we haven't got our priorities quite right. And that's not a criticism of the person that's asking the question or of anybody. But sometimes the reality is, if we were to think about our priorities and think about, sometimes we're materially driven because of, the society that we live in. But if you start to think about, actually, what are my needs? What am I trying to achieve in life? How do I self-actualize? Who am I? Ask some of those questions. And if you're acknowledging that, actually, you know what, I'm not feeling very well, I feel as if I'm at the bottom of the pile, that's an acknowledgement. You start there and you start to build, connect, have the communications. And like I said today, you are not on your own. There will be several people. As long as you start to share and have that conversation, you will be able to help you.
Wow. So coming out of that question, Beresford, I would like to ask you then, how important is my ability to plan and to bring some kind of structure in order to build that resilience, to consolidate and to maintain it? How important is being able to have a plan and a structure?
Again, so it's recognizing purpose. It's recognizing your role in life. It's recognizing who you are. And this is not just about talking to, sometimes we can get a bit theological about it and from a scriptural and preachy point of view. It's about actually, who am I in the world, in the space that I am now? What do I really want to achieve? What is my purpose in life? Which direction am I going to take? How am I going to grow my kids? Do I want to get married? Don't I want to get married? I'm in a marriage. All of those kind of, life questions. How do we self-actualize in that process? So it's identifying your purpose and then starting to plan for that, whatever that is. And again, you are the only one that can be in control of that, because actually you are speaking for yourself. So you're looking after who you are in the space that you are. So you're trying to define who you are to start to build that resilience. So when the knocks start to come, wherever the challenges are, when life starts to happen, you're prepared. Not only physically, as we've talked about, it's about, don't feel that you are helpless, because that's a negative thought that comes quite easily, because we all, in our humanity, somebody can say, Sister Yvonne, I think you're fantastic, you're fantastic. But, that curl in your hair, you could tidy that up. And as much as they've told you that you're fantastic, you'll remember about them criticizing your hair. But, and that's quite
Which one?
Exactly. And that's quite a human trait that we all have. So regardless of how many times somebody will say to you, you're fantastic, you are able, you can do this, take it head on, face the obstacle. You won't hear that. You'll just hear, man, I can't do this. I can't do this. And it's quite a human thing today. So it's about trying to just acknowledge who you are, understand your purpose in life, and then start to set frameworks around that. Get the knowledge, get the education, identify people who have done things similar to what you have done already. And of course, you won't be on your own with that. And it's about how you connect with them, having the confidence to do that, and they can give you some advice.
Wow.
I hope that helps.
Oh, so that does really help, but it also just made me think about something else, in the sense that you said you could have said 4 positive things to me, 1 half negative thing, yet I focus completely on the negative, on the half negative, instead of on the 4 positives. So as people in general who are responsible to and for others and for interacting with them, do we need to be, I don't even know what word to use, more sensitive about how we speak to people?
I have this view about the pandemic of kindness.
Wow.
Where we all become kinder to everyone. And again, COVID has shown us that actually, with a little bit of kindness, the world will be a very, very different place, right? So if you think about the term pandemic, right? It's the Greek, right? For pan meaning all and demos meaning people or population. That's what the word pandemic means. So naturally start to think negative. We link it straight away to COVID, we link it to the virus, because it's the language that we use in contemporary. But if you look at what pandemic actually means in the Greek, pan meaning all, demos meaning people or population, I'm suggesting, to your question, that yes, we should be kind to people, but we find it easier to be more aggressive. You think that about how our politicians behave, you think about how some of our leaders behave, and you think to yourself, no wonder the world is in the state that it's in, because actually kindness, we have to go to grassroots. We have to look at what's happening on the ground in our communities before we start to see that actually, you know, our nurses and then our auxiliary staff and our cleaners, actually, they are equally as important as the guy who's the chief exec. How come have we never managed to understand that before? So the cleaner who we just step over them, we kick over their buckets, we do whatever we do. How come we've never begun to understand that? What is that about human nature and about the human trait? So my thing is, actually, you're right. Why can't we all be kind? Just exercise that little bit of kindness to whoever, the person in the street, your neighbor, your colleague, your friends, your family. Let's all champion this cause. It's my cause, really. I want to see a pandemic of kindness across the world.
Wow. Imagine if everybody got infected with it.
Imagine that. Everybody gets affected with kindness across the world in the same way, or even more so, than this invisible virus that we're seeing going around the world at the moment.
Wow. But do you know what I tend to think happens is that some of us develop this thing where it's our job to correct everybody and to go around putting people in their place, and they mustn't get away with nothing. So by being unkind or saying something to correct the person, we feel that we've taken control and we've got the upper hand. Whereas one word of kindness could have revolutionized that person's life, but instead we went the other way. Isn't that?
Absolutely right.
Yeah, because I'm finding as I get older, I want different things. It's not money or flattery or possessions that I want. I'm actually looking for just kindness. Just be kind.
Yeah, just
to me.
A polite word. Say hello, smile, say,
yes.
How are you today? And thank you and goodbye. Is that really too much to ask?
Oh, that would make a world of difference.
Absolutely. And when I speak to some of the patients and some of my colleagues that I work with, just to have someone say to them, hello, how are you? And here's the thing about when you ask, how is someone? You've got to listen to them. So some of us are quite quick. How are you? I'm fine. And by that, you've moved on. You've asked the question and you haven't taken the time to listen to the answer.
Yeah. But have you noticed that normally when you say, how are you? People will say, I am fine, because they actually expect you to move on very quickly.
Absolutely.
But if you take the time to actually ask them a second time, often you get the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. And say, really, tell me how are you actually feeling today?
Yeah, how are you really?
Yeah, absolutely.
We've got a comment here. It says that we are told to listen to the last word, meaning the final word, because it usually holds the key to the statement that we just heard.
Wow.
So that's just a comment by someone, and you will not believe this.
You probably need to have someone on that. Someone needs to be on your program.
Well, maybe.
Well.
But listen, you're not going to believe this, but can you believe we're practically out of time?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. It's just been a tremendous conversation filled with so much good, useful, juicy information. You told us that resilience is the ability to adapt to stressful situations or crises, that it's a way of rolling with the punches, that we can develop and learn this with effort and practice. So it actually does take some of the knocks to develop resilience in us. If we get through life knock-free, we never will develop that quality.
And again, if I refer to my two boxers in the image, imagine there's 12 rounds of boxing.
Wow.
And you get some knocks. You might even get knocked down.
Yeah.
And in fact, get caught, seriously caught. you go back to your seat, and you might feel, you know what, I haven't got the wherewithal to get back up there and take some more blows. But
then those people in your corner,
by the time they finish talking to you, in less than a minute, 2 minutes, you're back up off that chair and you're back in there again. That is what resilience looks like.
So you talked about control, you talked about perseverance, you highlighted the fact that we are spiritual beings and that we need to set some priorities in our lives. We needed to be people with half-filled glasses rather than half-empty glasses. Absolutely. That we had to believe in our own strengths and appreciate the social support that we're given, that we have to manage our thoughts, because if we keep thinking negative, it's going to be very hard to get a positive result. So we need to put the positive in there and always look on the bright side of life. You said if you've got some kind of humor going on inside you, talk to those around you, ventilate those feelings, let off the steam. It will help us to get things into proportion. It will also allow us to see that other people are experiencing similar things and we can learn some of their coping mechanisms. And you gave us several numbers that we could use to get help. We've got the Birmingham Healthy Minds for those who are 18 plus. And that phone number is 0121 301 2525. And then you gave us 2 phone numbers for people who are 18 and under. And the first one is Papyrus, which is 0800 068 4141. And you can self-refer through this number if you're experiencing dark thoughts, low moods, suicidal ideation. And you've got Pause, which is 020 7841 4470. And again, that's self-referral, and you can get some help. And you also encourage people to get hold of their GPs, because they will get help, and there'll be a non-judgmental attitude and approach toward them, and they shouldn't allow themselves to stigmatize themselves, because there are real people who are waiting to help. And you ended up by saying that we should recognize our purpose, recognize our role in life, who we are, and what our goals are. So for me, this has been a tremendous time, and I really pray that our audience would have appreciated and learned and benefited from the things that you've said. So we've got just a minute for you to say whatever you want to say and just close us out in prayer.
And again, thank you, Sister Yvonne, for inviting me on, and it's been a real privilege. And I just pray that churches like yourself really will continue to understand that this space, and I'll call it a space, is really important. And I'm sure you are engaging and connecting with community in a way that you have never could have imagined in terms of numbers. So it's really important for us to start to reimagine how we do church, reimagine how we connect with communities, reset, rethink how we connect with communities. There are some of our most vulnerable people who, through this space, will connect more so than they would do walk through the church doors. So it's how we make this space available to them. And again, the pandemic of kindness is how I would want to end.
Oh, yes.
It's just in the same way that the virus has, this invisible virus just hit us, where to the point where we've had to rethink, we've had to reset. I would want to encourage us to just be kind, and that pandemic of kindness across the world. Imagine that level of infection of kindness across the world. The world would be just an amazing place.
Yes. So please
with that, so Father, we just thank you for this opportunity, for friends and family and community. loved ones to be able to just engage in this space and hear about the importance of resilience and the importance of looking after ourselves, connecting with loved ones, connecting, building strong connections within our local churches or where we can't find our churches, connecting with our loved ones in a way that builds our resilience so that we can find our purpose in life. We can start to self-actualize. We can start to influence our community and just being kind to each other. So, Father, we just thank you for New Jerusalem Church and the work that they are doing, using this space and social media just to connect and share and be kind and be compassionate and show love across these various different platforms. Father, we just thank you. And I pray for the services that we provide, such a unique and such a service that is impacting across the country of Birmingham and Solihull. So, Father, we just thank you for all the staff, all 4,000 staff, Father, who are doing such an incredible job. I just thank you for them. I pray that you increase their skill and their knowledge, and that we should begin to connect with communities and partner with communities even more. In your name.
Amen. Amen. Once again, Beresford, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time, and who knows, perhaps you'll be back in the future. And I love your t-shirt. That's John 3:16, right?
Hey.
And to all our viewers, thank you so much.
It's all about that. Thank you.
Yes, for God so loved the world that he gave his only son for us. And we love you. May God bless you. And good night.
Good night. Thank you so much.